And that's a green light on a Thursday morning, but ladies and gentlemen, ooh, I might want to bring my microphone over here. There we go. Good morning. It's Thursday, and guys, Mr. President, I ain't gonna lie. I am growing somewhat weary of not winning.
Yeah, we won for the first 3 years of Trump's presidency. A couple of notable exceptions. The bump stock ban was a terrible mistake, but Trump hasn't made many of those. Trump's done most of this right. And in all fairness, what we're about to discuss, not really Trump's fault.
In fact,
I
I
mean, no,
have a hard time thinking of any other real mistakes that he's made apart from the bump stock ban and the police reform bill or police reform um, executive order, and they're both mistakes for the same reason: the Munich Agreement. The appeasement is never a good strategy.
yeah,
You should have treated Black Lives Matter and the gun grabber groups just like North Korea, and for the same reasons.
yeah. So let's do it. Let's get into this. Howard the Coward. Hashtag Howard the Coward.
Yeah.
Just
So
quick
what?
recap.
So what's the headline? What's the headline? Former Atlanta police officers. We're talking. We're mostly talking about Garett Rolfe this morning because Brosnan Brosnan apparently rolled over on his buddy.
Yeah, we'll get to that. That deserves its own little segment.
Yeah. Uh. So Paul Howard, the Atlanta District Attorney of sexual harassment and charity fraud fame, has
Yeah,
decided
sure, Fulton. Go ahead.
he has decided that in this perfectly justified shooting of Rayshard Brooks, that the officer who in the heat of combat being attacked by a violent inebriate with a stolen weapon chose to defend his life and the safety of the surrounding civilians should be charged with felony murder. So, you know what? Let's talk for just a moment about qualified immunity, because that's that's one of the things that that they're demanding is an end to qualified immunity. Well, because police officers are immune from litigation. They're immune from charges if they murder somebody while they're in uniform. No,
Apparently
bullshit,
not.
bullshit. So okay, so no, here's how qualified immunity actually works. Good morning, Danny. I'll pause
And
for a moment.
Rod.
Seeing the two of you here makes me smile. Now, right now, qualified immunity. Qualified immunity protects officials, not just police officers, but officials, from civil litigation in the event that they make an honest mistake in the course of decision making related to their official capacity. It does not immunize the government from civil litigation against incidences arising from such a mistake, but it is explicitly for officials making decisions in their official capacity, as long as there is no naked incompetence or willful knowing criminality. So
Yeah, malice.
you don't have you do not have qualified immunity if you knowingly and intentionally committed a crime, or if you are just blatantly incompetent. So an officer having immunity to civil litigation, assuming he's doing his job correctly. Good God, I've got the hiccups. That's going to help.
Hey, I hear screen sharing with your partner cures hiccups.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it does. That was very subtle.
Like hitting a donkey in the head with a 2x4.
Yeah. Anywho, so qualified immunity does not protect you if you have knowingly and intentionally broken the law or are just fully incompetent. So it only protects nobody that the BLM people say they want to protect. Say that they want to expose. The objective of people who are trying to eliminate qualified immunity is to be able to file civil charges, to be able to sue a cop even after a jury has cleared him of charges. So let's say, for example, the Rolfe case ends in his complete and total acquittal, which it absolutely should, or we don't have law enforcement anymore. Let's say it ends in a complete and total acquittal. That would mean that under the law, he had not negated his qualified immunity by committing a willful crime. Since he would then still have qualified immunity, he can't be sued by the family for the loss of their relative because the relative is at fault essentially for his own death. And yes, when you take a cop's weapon and attempt to murder him and die as a result, it's your fault. It is not the cop's fault. He did the right thing.
Okay. So let's just get right into the meat of it. Just briefly, before we move on to what an absolute piece of shit Paul Howard is and how Devin Brosnan is even twice over an even bigger piece of absolute shitty shit. Rod and Danny both are making comments in the thread about how do you know how many times the taser can fire. And here's the deal, okay? If you look at the George Floyd situation, okay, that is about 9 minutes long. And one of the biggest legitimate criticisms of the George Floyd situation is there was 9 minutes for Officer Chauvin to change his mind about what the correct course of action was.
Criticism.
Look, fair enough, okay? Now, let's look at what happened with Rayshard Brooks. That only lasted about a minute and was literally an active struggle for that entire minute. And man, we're talking about a huge time gap here. And we're talking about the fact that they never got Rayshard Brooks cuffed either, because he fought him the whole way. As far as the taser, well, aren't they supposed to know that the taser could fire again? How the hell do you know? Especially because he punched both officers. Okay, so both officers have had their bell slightly rung. They know that a weapon has been stolen from one of the officers. They know that the weapon has been attempted to be used against the officers. And
not
what?
Attempted to be used. Just because you
I just
missed,
mean he failed in using it.
Just because you missed doesn't mean you didn't use the weapon. He fired that weapon at the officers.
He did. And what I'm driving at is, what are they going to do? They're going to go, no, hold on, wait a minute. It's like the whole thing with the continuum of force. Hold on, wait a minute. Okay, I know he shot the taser at us once, but did he shoot the taser at us a second time? I don't know. Hey, Officer Brosnan, did he shoot the taser at us once or twice? Gosh, I don't know. I just got punched in the face. I didn't even know he shot it at us at the first time. I mean, you can't get a more justified shoot than this. He stole a cop's weapon and pointed it at the cops. Oh, well, he shot him in the back. Well, he shot him in the back after he pointed a weapon over his shoulder. I mean, oh, oh. So seriously, stop comparing this to George Floyd. For starters, the fact that one incident lasted 9 minutes and the other incident lasted for a minute, and the fact that one man was cuffed and the other man was not, these are not the same things. Stop it. Stop it. Good Lord. I'm actually pretty angry about this. I listened to Paul Howard's press conference yesterday as he gave it, and I was shocked. I couldn't believe it because of the way the man tried the case in public. Like he's spoiled any jury in Fulton County, and then all the stuff coming out about how, oh well, after he shot him, he uttered the phrase, "I got him." And then after he was down on the ground, they stood on top of him and kicked him. All that does is inflame people's passions. It has nothing, nothing, nothing to do with whether or not it was a justified shoot. All you're doing is including this emotionally loaded, I don't even know that I want to call it fact, this emotionally loaded material into your press conference so that everybody that hears it, and
just
I've even seen it on my Facebook page where people are like, "Oh my God, did you hear that they kicked him after he was shot?"
Yeah, and to that I say, so what? I don't care if he kicked him after he was shot. I kind of expect him to, honestly. In my training, and mine's a little different because I was fighting actual terrorists, not random monsters in the street. I was fighting terrorists overseas, not random monsters in the streets of the United States. And guys, okay, I'm not going to go down that road. Let me go down this road. If I have to put a man down in full battle rattle in active combat under color of law in the course of conducting the art of war, which is one of my favorite things to do. If I have to put a man down in a fight, once the smoke clears, it's not just something I want to do, it's standard. We're going to check each body to see for several things, to see if it's wearing a suicide vest for one, which you don't do by kicking them, but to see if they're playing possum, because the last thing you want to do is be checking on other bodies when the one that's playing possum pops up to start shooting again. And I have found few combatants that don't squiggle a little when you give them a little chop in the ribs. When the question is whether or not the violent criminal or the violent enemy operative is still alive and might continue to pose a threat to yourself or the civilians around you, when that's the question that needs to be answered, I does not care if it's a little uncomfortable for him when I kick him in the ribs a bit. And then, similarly, they're talking about how apparently Rolfe stepped on Rayshard's arm. Yes, until you know he's dead, he continues to be a threat. Especially if he's so inebriated that he was apparently under-affected by the taser. Let's remember, when everything was still all cool and jovial, fucking Howard, who's jovial with him. Yeah, when he was saying, I only had one drink. I had maybe a drink and a half.
One and a half.
Well, what'd you drink? I don't remember. You know, when he was having that conversation, but blew a .1 and was
which is
then
20% over the legal limit.
And then was sufficiently inebriated that he didn't collapse when he was tasered. Guys, that's a dangerous man. That's a dangerous man who has just demonstrated that he is willing to commit violence against police officers.
By the way, that sip of coffee was for you, Danny.
I don't, yeah. I don't, I cannot think of any way that you can more.
Okay, so Howard's.
If Rayshard had grabbed one of their actual guns instead of the taser, that is the only way that this could be a more clearly justified shoot. That's it.
So, in Howard's press conference, not only did he spoil any jury in Fulton County, like terribly, what an absolute piece of dog shit, but it seemed to revolve around two key points. The first is, when you arrest somebody, you have to let them know they're being arrested. And because they did not verbally tell him he was under arrest, that's the first thing that he was able to find real legal fault with. The second thing is, and this is SOP for just about every police department in the country, once whatever incident is actually over, you're supposed to render medical assistance to the perpetrator. And apparently they went a full 2 minutes before they tried to engage in life-saving techniques. Okay. If you can watch the video and understand what happened, sometimes a cop grabs you by the arm and begins to put the bracelets on you. As they say you're under arrest, you're being extremely litigious when you say, I have to tell you I'm going to arrest you before I arrest you. Excuse me, Mr. Bad Guy, would you mind just standing still for a second so that I can tell you that you're under arrest and then I begin to arrest you? I mean, and then the second thing, okay, 2 minutes with no medical aid. Well, I mean, they discharged their weapons in a crowded area, and they'd both been punched in the face. Everything was popping off and going crazy. Even that, even if you can fault the cops for that, maybe they deserve to be fired. They did their job poorly. But that's not criminal. It doesn't have anything to do with whether or not the shooting was justified. Every cop in the country understands that what made the shooting justified is he stole a weapon from the officers. And it doesn't matter if you're white or black. Touch a cop's belt. Touch their back belt and see what happens to you. If you're lucky, you're going to get pile drove into the ground. If you're lucky. Because they're all trained the same way. You feel the hands go to your belt. There's only one reason. And it's because they're trying to steal your gun and use it against you. So, Rod's asking if they ever searched the dude. They did search him. He even had a bulge in one of his pockets, which he claimed to be a wad of cash, and the officers took him at his word on that. But he was not a threat until he stole a taser, and then he was a pretty big fucking threat. Anyhow, so Paul Howard, why is he doing this? Well, it's an election year. And for the first time in 20 years, Paul Howard is, he's actually got a contested election he's having to deal with. And he's got a contested election that he's having to deal with because it turns out he's just got a couple of teensy-weensy little scandals hanging over his head, which include multiple allegations of sexual harassment. One in particular is that he had a girlfriend that he worked with, and she got favorable treatment while they were having their affair. Because, of course, both him and the girlfriend were in a relationship, and they carried on a protracted affair with one another. This was not a drunken one-night stand whoopsie. This was something that they repeatedly engaged in, you see. and she got preferential treatment while all this was going on. She even claims to have a 21-minute phone conversation recording in which they plan out in great detail their next liaison, and it sounds an awful lot like Paul Howard in this recording. Paul Howard, through his attorney, has declined to comment on it. Of course he has. So, hashtag Me Too and all that doesn't apply to Democrats, just Republicans. Oops, there's a big surprise. And then the other one, the one that actually might be an even bigger legal sticky little wicket for him to overcome, is the fact that he's involved in a charity to stop gang violence that seems to pay him anywhere from $70,000 a year and up every year. And he's district attorney of Fulton County. He's already making a six-figure salary. And he also appears to be skimming money off the top of a charity to the point to where the GBI has been actively investigating him. So what does Paul Howard do? Well, he wants to get reelected because elected officials are almost impossible to prosecute. And it's set up that way on purpose. I'm not saying we need to change the system, but he definitely wants to get reelected. Definitely. So what does he do? Well, he comes out and he virtue signals to Fulton County, which is a mostly black county, by the way. So
yeah, vote Howard. He's pro-crime.
Yeah. Well, he's down for the struggle. He's not going to let these evil white cops get away with it. He's just not going to do it. Vote for me. I mean, that's what it is. This is a virtue signal. I'd almost have more respect for this if he was a true blue BLMer and he was doing this for ideological reasons. But no, he's doing it because he's terrified of losing the election and spending the rest of his miserable, pathetic life in prison. That's why he did it. So, fuck the police. Fuck these two cops. And yeah. And if you really want to listen to something just amazing, go back and listen to the first 30 minutes of the press conference. There is absolutely no way that these cops get an unbiased jury in Fulton County. No way.
Well, and let's talk about that question of bias real quick. Hey, Steve, morning. While Cameron was ranting, I was tweeting at, and I'm going to send it after I read it. NPR runs this headline: "The white Atlanta police officer who fatally shot Rayshard Brooks in the back will face a felony murder charge and 10 other charges." I'm retweeting with comment: "The Atlanta police officer whose ethnicity is only salient to a racial narrative that is unsupported by facts, who fatally and justifiably shot the inebriated felon with a demonstrated tendency for aggravated violence against police, will face charges despite clear justification." Okay, one little edit.
But yeah, that's, make no mistake about it. Paul Howard did this. Pure politics. He's trying to stay in Mayor Black Girl Magic's good graces in just this wonderful system we live in. There's a reason why the founding fathers chose to make us a representative democracy as opposed to a pure democracy.
So that we could avoid mob rule, electing a bunch of ethno-supremacists to office where they could systematically and actively pretend like they're victims while simultaneously conducting an agenda of ethno-supremacy against their fellow man? Maybe?
Yeah, as a matter of fact. They had a very low opinion of pure democracy. They saw the dumbasses, being able to vote in droves for a populist agenda. And oh man, they were right about that one. But that only applies if you're a Trump supporter. That doesn't apply if you vote Democrats. You're on the right side of history if you vote for Democrats.
Were they maybe concerned about direct democracy because riots. I mean, this is what your direct democracy looks like. Because this is the mob. This is Black Lives Matters. Let's be very clear about something. The phrase Black Lives Matter, the mere phrase Black Lives Matter, is one that pretty much nobody disagrees with. You will be hard-pressed to find a legitimate racist in America. They're out there.
Yeah,
sure.
But there are just not that many of them. You're talking about 1% of the population at best.
But when you
unless you're talking about
when you march with a sign that says Black Lives Matter or a t-shirt that says Black Lives Matter, you are not making the statement that Black Lives Matter. What you need to understand is that Black Lives Matter is a specific organization with a specific agenda, and that specific agenda is communism. It is toxic feminism. And when I say toxic feminism, literally one of the demands of the Black Lives Matter movement is the abolition of the traditional Western family unit. BLM would prefer that you have a dozen babies with a dozen baby daddies or a dozen baby mamas. They would prefer that those babies, that those children grow up without a father, because they would prefer that your children grow up poor, stupid, and violent. Because what they need is a mob of poor, stupid, violent people.
Dave's in the comments. He says he's pretty much saying fighting cops is fine. Go ahead. Yeah. I mean, that's obvious.
Yeah, and then the next thing I want to talk about, in response to Howard the Coward throwing Law and Order under the bus and completely jettisoning his oaths of office. Which, by the way, this guy has been a useless DA since 1997. Stop.
I thought he first got elected in 2000.
So text from
it doesn't matter.
officer.
20 years.
So right. So Johnny Joey Jones, he's got himself a little check mark. Says text from APD officer. I can confirm the walk-off is real. Whole shifts have left and overnight shifts are refusing to come in. From Fox 5, Atlanta police disputes rumors of mass officer walkouts. Says seeing higher than usual call-outs.
Yeah, there is conflicting reporting on this. Some people say the walk-offs are real. Some people say the walk-offs are exaggerated. It's difficult to confirm since, this is a slightly emotionally loaded issue.
This seems like higher than usual call-outs.
Yeah,
is the official statement from the Atlanta police. And yeah, that could mean that it's 1% higher, or it could mean the whole shift didn't show up. And so I learned something last night, very interesting. Cameron, did you know about Broadcastify?
Oh, you mean where you can stream police radios for free?
Yeah, and you can listen to them and hear that basically there's just nobody on in the 6th District. You can just listen to it and say, oh, it's, there's just not a lot of traffic on this radio. I wonder why that is. Could it be the blue flu? Damn you, Dave, for trying to jump on my blue flu joke. So, I had not heard the phrase blue flu before I heard the Officer Tatum talking about it. The Officer Tatum. So Officer Tatum told us about the blue flu, and here's how it works. Here's what the blue flu is. Police unions, unlike I think all other public sector unions, have very specific rules that make it almost impossible for them to strike because they're essential employees. You know, the teachers can decide to just walk off, the garbage collectors can just walk off. Basically, anybody who's in a public sector union can just decide not to show up to work and do a strike. The cops can't do that. But what the blue flu refers to is you can't prevent them from calling in sick. So the blue flu is when, okay, we're not allowed to strike. So we just all, looks like,
Gosh, I've got a bit of a cough.
Maybe a case of the COVID made it into our precinct. That's what happened. That's what happened. Some criminal, like George Floyd, who had COVID, coughed on an honest cop and infected the whole precinct. And now we can't go out and do our jobs because we might get somebody sick. That's the blue flu.
Yep, and
please believe I am 100% pro blue flu.
Well, at this point, I don't even think it matters if you're pro or con blue flu. Can you blame the officers?
Not at all.
Like, I guarantee you, I'll go back to, it's in every police book guidelines for every department across the entire country. They put their hands on your back belt, and it is the maximum threat level instantaneously. Like, there's no... Why'd you feel like you were in fear for your life? Because he was trying to steal weapons out of my belt. Oh, okay. You were in fear for your life. Like, that is how that works. 10 out of 10. But we haven't even gotten to the absolute nastiest piece of this press conference and the way this case is going to go down.
Oh, yes.
As big of a piece of shit as Paul Howard is, there's one who's bigger, and that's Devin Brosnan, the non-shooter at the scene. Now, let me be clear, and then I'm just going to kick it over to Chris, because I'd really love to hear his comments on how men in uniform have one another's backs. It's pretty obvious what happened here. Somebody did the math for Devin Brosnan and said, buddy, you're going to catch some charges. That's going to happen. But if you don't want to catch a murder charge, you flip. That's how that's going to work. You can either be our star witness, or you can sit in the exact same penalty box. And Devin Brosnan turns out as a cowardly piece of shit, and he flipped. So please, Chris, please, men in uniform that can't trust the other men in uniform.
Now, it's possible. There is the outside possibility that Rolfe Rod says Brosnan didn't withstand the struggle session. Dave said his lawyer said on TV he is not working with prosecution. Okay, so that's a conflicting report, and we're going to have to look into that a little more. So
thank you, Dave.
I'll give you this one, Brosnan. Once we get a little more info here, we can issue a correction on your piece of shit status, and I'll be happy to do that. And so I will speak in the hypothetical a bit. Let me begin with this hypothetical. Okay, so, and I've got it again from Alex McDonald, who is a very trusted source and friend of the show. According to his attorney, he has not turned state's evidence. That means that Howard is not just a coward, but a liar.
So Paul Howard lied to us.
So Paul Howard lied to us in the press
shock.
conference. So let me say, okay, I'm going to stop looking at the comments for a second. It is possible that Rolfe did something wrong. That possibility is a far-flung, distant, but potentially extant possibility. And if he did something egregiously wrong, then it would not be unreasonable for the other officer at the scene to take action to intercede. It is good for the unit for a soldier to check his buddy. All right?
Yeah, iron sharpens iron.
Iron sharpens iron. Now, if, as appears more likely to be the case from the video evidence we have, which I might add is a pretty complete recording of the incident between the body cams, the Wendy security footage, and the several civilian onlooker shots, we have a very clear timeline of events. We went from a calm, casual conversation that included the failure of a field sobriety test and the breathalyzer test to an attempt being made to place the handcuffs onto Rayshard Brooks, followed immediately by Rayshard fighting two cops to the ground, stealing a weapon, firing one of the two shots that the taser is capable of firing, and then being shot by the officer before he could fire another wild shot from the taser, potentially injuring a civilian or one of the officers. And to be clear, the tasers that the cops use tend to be the two-shot variety. So, in fairness, I cannot say 100% for certain that this taser was the two-shot variety, but that is the one that the officers tend to carry. It has one cartridge that fires two shots, then you have to reload the cartridge. So, and in that video, we did not see the taser that Rayshard fired once before, so it is perfectly reasonable for the officer to have expected there to be another shot to be fired. The taser that we did see fired in the video before Rayshard fired it, before the inebriated, violent criminal with a demonstrated habit of causing violence against the officers, the one that we saw that guy fire, was not the one that had previously been fired when Rolfe fired a taser at Rayshard Brooks, who was so inebriated that he was unaffected by a taser. Okay. So, if Brosnan turns state's evidence, we are talking about a man you can't have in the foxhole with you. And the reason you can't have him in the foxhole with you is because he is a danger to your safety, to the mission, and to the unit. If Brosnan flipped on Rolfe, well, brother, I will not be surprised or sorrowful when your brothers in blue beat you to death with a bunch of tube socks full of soap. Because you deserve it. You
now
have your buddies back. If you don't, and let me be very, very clear. If there's gray area in the legality of your situation, okay, clear wrongdoing, very clear wrongdoing, do the right thing, check your buddy. When you're talking gray area, buddy, you have your buddies back. Because you have to be able to trust one another to make incredibly hard decisions. Incredibly hard decisions. You have to trust one another to choose one life over another. Right? When you kill a man like Rayshard Brooks, who is an inebriate, a violent inebriate with a weapon in a crowd of civilians, make no mistake, you are not just choosing his survival over your own. You are choosing his survival, and you are not only choosing your survival over his, you are choosing the survival and safety of the gathered onlookers, the civilians at the scene. You are choosing their survival and safety over his. And when you are choosing the life of civilians, when your choice is between the life of civilians and the life of a violent, dangerous, inebriated criminal, I will chew your throat out to clarify that decision. Every time.
So, you back your brother's play. It's not just a cute saying. You back your brother's play. Like, that's one of the things. I have brothers, and that's one of the things that Papa Sheepdog was real big on. No, this is your brother. Unless he's 100% wrong, you back his play. And if he is wrong, you get him out of the situation and tell him in private that he's wrong.
Okay, real quick. Dave says, clarification, it was Rolfe's lawyer I saw on TV. He said the other cop's lawyer told him he wasn't flipping. He said Howard lied. Okay, so...
Howard lied.
Let me do this. I'll take a look at it later today. Try to get to it this afternoon. And I'll put out a sort of clarification. And just to be clear right now, Brosnan, if you flipped, you deserve to die. And if that is not the case, then take it as a hypothetical and have this conversation with your battle buddies, because they need to hear it.
So since Howard lied,
I find it much more feasible to expect that somebody like Howard just lied.
Oh yeah. And speaking of Howard lying, we all saw multiple angles of this incident, right? The body cam footage was released very quickly and all of that.
Yeah, so...
And by the way, and good on the cops for getting the body cam footage out quickly, because that's the reason why we haven't seen the Floyd body cam footage, just because once charges were filed, that body cam footage became evidence and became sealed. Now, what's really just super duper interesting...
Real quick, I think that's why they jumped so fast to this ridiculous knee-jerk thing, just like with George Floyd. They just jumped knee-jerk, just immediately, into filing charges and firing the officers. Well, they did that so that they could seal the body cam footage. Because please believe, if that body cam footage from the George Floyd death was anything but exonerating and exculpatory, it would be everywhere. It would be the headline on every news channel. I think there's something in the George Floyd case that is being deliberately hidden. And I think that because there was such a stink made about not releasing the body cam footage. If that footage told the story that we are to believe, that is the story over which America has been burned down, if that footage told that story, it would be the only footage we were seeing.
So, just quick conspiracy theory time, though. You know, going back to, we all saw multiple angles of the incident, the body cam footage was released and all that. Before Paul Howard mentioned it yesterday, does anybody remember seeing the body getting kicked? Now, look, I could have missed it, okay? There was actually a lot of video to swim through.
Yeah, I'm sure in the several dozen times. I'm sure during the several dozen times that I had to watch each clip of that video while I was editing our Ballad of Rayshard Brooks video, it's possible that I just missed that.
And look, all sarcasm aside, maybe it did get missed. And well, I'm trying to get to a point here, buddy boy.
Keep swimming. I apologize.
Just treading water. Just treading water. Okay. Why did he release a picture?
A photograph. A still image in a sea of video. To try and make the claim of an action.
And look, maybe it happened. Okay? Maybe it did. And even if it did, it doesn't have anything to do with whether or not the shooting was justified. but maybe it happened. But why release a still image?
Or maybe you're a damn liar. Not you, obviously.
I try not to lie. I'm a student of Jordan Peterson.
Oh, I was pointing at my camera, not you. Wait, what?
No, but seriously, now that it's coming out right here on the stream, and please continue to correct us if we're incorrect. Let's all learn something together. That's how actual intellectuals do it.
Hell yeah.
But, okay, if Paul Howard lied about all this other stuff, and he's terrified of going to prison for the rest of his life, is it really that big of a stretch to think that he would doctor a piece of evidence? Because please, if any of y'all come across actual video of dude getting kicked, send it to us.
Yeah.
Please. Doesn't change whether or not the shooting is justified.
And I promise you, if you send me the video of Rolfe kicking Brooks, I will look at the video and I will say to myself, oh, hey, he kicked him. Nope, still perfectly reasonable.
Yeah. So this whole situation, and our buddy Alex, who's in the comments, made a pretty salient point that this decision basically signals it's open season on cops. It goes back to something Dave said earlier in the thread that, hey, you can fight cops. Go for it.
Yeah, the purge is on.
And who's going to be the most negatively impacted by it? That's actually one of the things that the Purge movies got right. Poor minorities will get fucked over by the Purge. Now, they claim it's going to be us evil conservatives that are going to do it. Nah, Holmes. That's not how that's going to go down at all. Your poor minority communities will be fucked over by the Purge, but it's not going to be by guys like me.
No, we're too busy going to work to just go out and commit recreational felonies. Like we've talked about the whole recreational felonies thing before. When I was a teenager, from the time I was about 15, outside of school, for the most part, I was too busy with my what was that? I had a thing that I did. I did it almost every day too. It was
started with a J.
Oh, I was a job. I was too busy. When I was a teenager, I was too busy flipping your pizzas and building your boats and dock houses and shit. I was too busy with a job to commit recreational felonies. And I got a bunch of kids to feed. That's even truer.
Because, good God, they want to eat every day, don't they?
Every damn day.
But yeah, I honestly hate it that I have to go to work. I really would just like to live stream all day and talk about what a ginormous piece of sexual harassment, skimming off the top of charity shit Paul Howard is. Howard the Coward. Hashtag Howard the Coward. Because he doesn't want to go to jail. That's what all this is about. He doesn't want to go to jail. I mean, fuck him. Fuck him. Just.
So yeah, if you happen to be watching the show and get to vote in Atlanta, Howard's got to go.
Yeah, vote for anybody but Paul Howard.
I don't care if it's Jesse Jackson.
Apparently he's got a neurological disorder. He ain't running for anything. In fact, apparently he ain't even running anymore. Oh wow, that was some dark humor. Yeah. Oh, hey, Steve's in the comments says need to get you a silver MAGA hat. Steve, I know your voting habits, so I'll tell you what. You buy the official MAGA hat, and I'll wear it.
Let's see. I've got red, camo, white, and well, that's my team hat. Just real quick because Alex and Danny are in the thread. This one up here in the corner. Damn it. Y'all let Larry know about that.
But yeah, it's 8 a.m.
Yep.
Gotta go to work.
We need to wrap it up. So
Howard the Coward.
jobs. Hashtag Howard the Coward. Make it a thing. All right, we love you guys. Thanks for hanging out. We will see y'all mañana. Be safe out there. Oh. And
Like,
public
share, and
service
subscribe.
announcements. Public service announcement. Like, share, subscribe, and wear a firearm.
Oh, and call your state senator and tell them to vote no on hate crimes legislation.
Done.
You done that yet, Chris?
No.
Shame.
I've been busy, man. I've
Shame.
been shooting people.
Shame.
I'll do it right now.
All right. Later.
Later.
Shame.
Yeah.